Hello, students of the 2019 fall semester in Business 1360 Software Apps for Business. Today, we're going to calculate your midterm grade using Excel. And so this is for our class today, Wednesday, October 3rd. The way that this is going to work is that you're going to play this video in small sections. Pause the video frequently so that you can complete each step. Rewind the video as needed. I will be available to assist students who need help. If you do not complete all steps of the video in class, you will complete the steps as homework. The completed Excel spreadsheet for calculating your grade must be submitted into the Calculate Your Midterm Grade with Excel assignment Dropbox by Wednesday, October 3rd, by 11:55 p.m. So let's get started. Log into Pause and go into our class. Then click on Assessment and Assignments. As you review the various Dropbox assignments available, you will not find the Dropbox that I just described on this page. We're looking for Calculate Your Midterm Grade. The reason is that we need to go to page 2. As you look on page 2 of your Dropbox assignments, it will be near the bottom. Here's an important note. When you come back to the Dropbox page, it may remember that you were on page 2, so you may have to change back to page 1. So if you don't find what you need, the Dropbox assignment on page 1, you may have to go back to page 2. Click on the Calculate Your Midterm Grade with Excel. Notice the instructions say your instructor will demonstrate in class and you will follow along with the demonstration and submit your final work. So I'm demonstrating this using a video, which will provide you with support inside the classroom and outside the classroom. And this is most helpful because students progress through the use of Excel at different speeds. Plus, it allows you to rewind, and it gives you the ability to look between your screen and the video, perhaps more easily for some students. Now that we've looked at that, I'm going to start Excel. As you learned, the easiest way to start Word is to go to the lower left corner and click in the Type Here to Search box and just type Word. The same is true for Excel. I can click in the box and simply type Excel 2016. It is important that the Excel software is installed on the computer that you're using. If you have any difficulty, remember that the college has computers, especially in the Academic Support Center. The beauty of that is that anytime you need assistance, you can just raise your hand or ask for quick help while you continue to work. I'm going to launch Excel. We're going to begin with a blank worksheet. Excel is divided into columns, which are these vertical, just like you would walk between columns of a building, and rows go across. And before we get started, I want to introduce you to a little bit of the navigation of Excel. Right now, the cell that I have selected is at the intersection of column A and row 1. We would refer to this cell as A1. When I have that cell selected, I'll see that in this upper left corner here, and it's called the name box. If I click in another cell, notice that the name box changes, and this helps me to know the name of the cell. The column name always comes first, C2. When you look at the column C, notice that Excel has it shaded. It looks different than columns A and B and D and E. That's an easy way to help us see which column we're in. That can become confusing and to know what column you're in when you click something further down on the page. It would be easy to get off into another column. And so Excel has provided that little tip to help us see easily which column and which row is selected. Now, I'm going to make my screen a little bigger, and so in terms of the navigation, if you'll look down in the lower left corner, notice that things that you learned in Word are now familiar in Excel. So just as you could zoom in Word, you can zoom in Excel. So I'm doing this so that you can see my screen more easily. If you would also like to zoom in, that's wonderful. I will leave that to you. Now, as I zoomed in, since I had this cell down here selected, I can no longer see the top of my spreadsheet, and that's what this is called, is a spreadsheet. So I'm going to use the scroll bar here on the right to scroll up, and I'm going to click in cell A1. In cell A1, I want you to type your name. My pretend student name is Anna Apples. Here's a big difference between Excel and Word. With Word, you only hit the Enter key when you are creating a new paragraph. In Excel, you will always hit the Enter key when you are finished typing in the cell. So I am finished typing and I need to press the Enter key on my keyboard. We're now going to learn an important aspect of Excel. When I typed this information into cell A1, I didn't quite have enough room for that information to display. And so the information appears to have gone into cell B1, but in fact, it isn't. All of the information is contained in cell A1. How do I know that? This is important. Click on cell A1. Notice that you see the information twice, once in the cell and once along the top here. This is called the formula bar. I refer to it as a truth detector because it always tells us exactly what is in that cell. It tells us the truth. I can verify that all of Anna Apple's name is contained in cell A1. If I clicked on cell B1, notice that the formula bar, which tells us the truth, shows that nothing is in that cell. With cell B1 selected, I'm now going to type mid-term grade. What do I do when I have finished typing? I must always press the Enter key. Now, if you've made a mistake at any time, you can simply select the cell again and type again, and it will replace the text in that cell. You have to be careful about that because that's what happens. So I'm going to select this cell again. B1 is selected. Notice that it says up here midterm grade. Well, I want to type my midterm grade. And see how it just replaced the text that was there previously? Whenever I get to the end of typing what I want in that cell, I must press the Enter key. Notice how the text is so long it appears to go into column C. But if I click cell C1, in fact, there is no information in that cell. So you're learning already a little bit about Excel. Now we're going to learn just a little bit more. Click cell B1. When you click the cell, do you see how it has a border around the cell? This is a very important border. In fact, so much that I'm going to make this bigger to make sure that you can see. When I move my mouse over the edge, notice that I'm right in the middle of the border. My mouse turns into what I call a four-sided arrow. This has a certain meaning, and it's very different than if my mouse is in the middle. Notice when it's in the middle, I have a puffy white plus sign. That does something different. It's even more different if I move my mouse to this corner. And you might notice in this corner that there is a notch. And when my mouse is directly over that notch, it turns into a thin black plus sign. Now that is very important because if my mouse is just a little bit up, I have four-sided arrow. If it's a little bit down, I have that thin black plus sign. If I'm a little bit to the right, four-sided arrow. So the mouse placement, if I'm just a little bit up, is very important and often can cause problems. For this reason, it's good to know the undo command. Do you remember the keyboard command for undo? Control Z. You may also find it up here along the top of your Excel toolbar, but this depends on how your computer is configured. That's one reason to always know Control Z. So here's going to be my first task using this border that goes around the cell. I'm going to put my mouse in the middle of that border. I'm pressing and holding down my mouse button. Now when I say mouse button, it's always the left button. If I say right, then I mean right. If I never say, then it's left. Okay, so by default, it's the left mouse button. And what I'm doing is the content of that cell B1 is currently stuck to my mouse. And when I move my mouse to cell A2, I'm going to release the mouse button. Notice that the contents of the cell, confirmed in my formula bar, have moved to cell A2. Perhaps I did that by accident. Well, Control Z or undo. Let's repeat those steps. Select the cell. Very important. Select the cell. That simply means click on it. That's the purpose of the puffy white plus sign. It selects the cell. So click cell B1 to select it. Here's an important note. Sometimes we need to deselect, unselect, not have something selected. And so what you may hear me say is click off somewhere or click away somewhere. So if I no longer want cell B1 selected, I can just simply click another cell. By selecting another cell, cell B1 is no longer selected. So you may want to begin by clicking off somewhere and then returning to click in cell B1. Once again, grab that border and let's move that to cell A2. So now I have Anna Apples in cell A1. That should be your name. So put your first name and your last name there. Then I have my midterm grade in cell A2. Now, What I want to do at this point is I want you to type your grades, or, not actually your number grades, but the label for your grades. And we're probably going to use some abbreviations just so that we don't have to type too much. So let's try to remember our grades. Well, the easiest way to do that is to go back to pause. Now, we were previously in this Dropbox. I want to go to Assessment and then Grades. Got to be patient, it's loading. Oh goodness. Hey, when that happens, that means my internet is not as reliable as I had hoped. I'm going to go back. I know what the problem is. My husband is going in and out, and our Ring doorbell camera is uploading video, so it's paused. So I'm going to pause this for just a moment. It makes my internet slow. I'm sorry. Aha. So here we are on the grades page, and all my grades are listed, and this is my sample account. You will use your grades, okay? Now, I'm just going to simply copy these into my Excel spreadsheet. When I say copy, I really mean transcribe. So perhaps a good thing to do at this point is to minimize our window just a little bit. And I'll show you a neat trick. I've got my mouse pointed to the formula bar here. You actually learned this in one of your early chapters in Word. If I move, I've got my mouse button pressed down, and I'm going to move it up against the side. And when I do you see how it's expanding? And it filled half of my screen, and now it wants to know, what else do I want displayed? Well, I want my spreadsheet displayed, so I just clicked it. Isn't that nice? I can have these side by side. All right. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to click in cell A4, and I'm going to type assignment name. Whenever I finish typing, I must press the Enter key. The name of the first assignment is Pause SLO Pre-Test, and this was bonus. I'm just going to remind myself. I didn't type that very well, did I? Bonus. Now, there is a post-test. That's the actual SLO test, but we haven't taken that yet. So I don't want to include that in my calculation of grades, because I would be earning a 0 for something that I just haven't had the opportunity to take yet. So I'm going to omit any scores or any assignments where I've not yet had the opportunity to take that assignment, to complete that assignment. The due date has not come. The next assignments that I see we've completed are Word Quiz 1 all the way through Word Quiz 3. Word Quiz 1. Don't forget to press the Enter key. Word Quiz. Okay. Notice that Excel is trying to help me finish that sentence with the exact same thing. Excel does that as a help. You might have a client where you're entering that client's name over and over and over again into this worksheet, perhaps with a different, fee that they owe. If so, this would be very convenient. And if I wanted that, I would simply press my Enter key at this time, and it would accept that. But I don't want that. I wanted it to say Word Quiz 2. So how can we fix that? First, select the cell. I need to select it. Notice that it's not selected now. That border is around cell 8, A8. Also notice the shading is on 8. So first, click in cell A7. There is more than one way to edit a cell. One way that we've already introduced is that you could simply type Word Quiz 2 right over the top of this. Another way is that you can move your mouse up to the formula bar. And in Word, we talked about the insertion point. And when you move your mouse up to the formula bar, when you click, you will see an insertion point. And you can click to move that insertion point to the place that is most convenient. I'm going to click at the very end of the 1. I'm going to press my backspace key, and I'm going to type 2, Word Quiz 2. Now that I have the changes that I want, I can press my Enter key, which is what I typically do. Another thing that you can do is click this arrow or this check mark right here. I typically press the Enter key because my hands are already on the keyboard. Now, if you did press the Enter key, you already moved down to cell A8. When you click the check mark, you stay in the same cell. It's very important to notice that, because if I was to start typing right now, it would replace the contents of cell A7. I don't want to do that. I want to make sure I'm in cell A8. Now, maybe yours also has this word dropped, because you do have a drop grade. But those things are best applied at the very end of the semester when you know what your lowest quiz grade was. For a this isn't even a midterm, but for a progress grade, it's best not to drop that grade. So we're going to ignore anything that says dropped, and we're going to treat it like all the other grades. So Word Quiz 3 is what I'm going to type in. I'm going to press the Enter key, and I do have one more quiz grade, Word Quiz 4. Press the Enter key. Now, once again, I have not yet had the due dates come up for the Excel quizzes. So I'm not going to give myself zeros for assignments where we've not progressed to that point in the semester. So continue down, and no need to worry with these other quiz scores. Now I'm at the next category, which is the lead and follow. All right. When we come over here to our spreadsheet, I'd like to make sure that this is a slightly different category. And so I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and I'm going to leave a space by going to cell A11. And instead of typing lead and follow in class Word case 1, I'm going to abbreviate a little bit, and I'm going to call this in class Word 1. Similarly, I'm going to do the same thing for 2 and 3 and 4. Make sure you are pressing your Enter key each time. Now, I'll tell you another tip. You see how I'm typing and Word has this filled in. Well, I was going to arrow and my tip did not work, so I apologize. But what I can do is if you press your Enter key, or you can accept that and then simply modify the cell using the technique that we've learned. Here's another trick. I can select this cell, right-click, copy, select where I want to paste it, and right-click, paste. Where's my paste? A benefit of doing that is that I don't have to retype so much. Now I'm going to show you one more little useful tool, and this is a very small introduction to it. Remember I said when you have a cell selected, there were 3 different shapes that your mouse would take on. Puffy white plus sign, 4-sided arrow, and thin black plus sign. Let's see what that thin black plus sign will do. If I click to select, now I did that one time, click, select, move my mouse away. No buttons are held down. But I want to select more than one cell. Keep your mouse in the puffy white plus sign shape. Not here, not here. You're selecting, and that's the job of the puffy white plus sign. So press your mouse button down, always the left one, unless specifically said right, and drag over those 3 cells. Here's an important note. Notice that 3 cells are selected, and that border goes all the way around the 3 cells. But only 2 of the 3 cells are shaded in that kind of purpley color. Why is that? You know, Excel believes that having one clear cell will help you more accurately view cells once you choose to color them, like maybe you fill them in with a yellow or something like that. And if you were to start applying colors, this one would have a purpley tint on top of it, and it would be harder to see. This confuses a lot of students who try to select this cell again, and that results in errors. So don't do that. Look instead at that green border that goes around all 3 cells. If you have any doubt about what's selected, click off somewhere. Return to the cell. Now, there's one of 2 ways to do this. Our first technique was that we clicked, we kept our mouse in the middle, and we press and drag. That's technique 1. Click off somewhere. Another technique is that we put our mouse, which is in the puffy white plus sign shape, and we just do in one step, press and drag. So I did not click, which would mean let up. I press and drag. With those cells selected, I'm going to move my mouse so that it's in the thin black plus sign shape. In other words, it's over that little nodule here at the end. When I have my mouse selected and I begin to drag that really special tab there, look at what the tip is telling me. It's going to populate that with in-class word 4. And if I were to continue dragging, it's going to count 5, 6, 7. This is a very smart copy feature of Excel, and it recognizes the pattern. And the pattern is that the numbers are changing at the end, 1, 2, 3. We'll see a lot more of that, but I wanted to give you an initial introduction. If you had difficulty with any of these steps, just rewind the video and repeat it. Alternatively, if you're comfortable simply typing these right now, you can do that. But you have learned some additional techniques, which is important because making sure you're fast in Excel. And by fast, these are not things that are lightning fast until you get very, very proficient. But you want to be able to demonstrate a certain mastery of that. All right, that was quick. In-class word 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now I hope you're remembering to pause the video as as you go to complete these steps. We finished the lead and follow because we haven't had time, we have not progressed through the semester to earn these other points. So we're going to go down to the My IT Lab simulators, right? So we've done 4 word simulators. So I'm going to skip another space, and I'm going to click in cell A16, and I'm going to type Word Sim 1, enter, Word Sim 2, enter, Word Sim 3, enter, Word Sim 4, enter. Now, we've done a lot of work and we have not saved our workbook yet, our worksheet. I think this is a good time to do this. Before I save, I need a place to save this file. So hopefully you have your flash drive with you. This is my flash drive. You need to open up your flash drive and let's create a folder. I can right click, or on your home tab you should see new folder. And I'm going to call this midterm grade. And I'm practicing our technique of using no spaces. But see how using proper capitalization makes it easy to read? Now that I've finished typing, I must hit enter. There's a similarity there, isn't there, with naming a folder and Excel. Double-click the folder to open it. Now I'm going to give you another tip, because part of this class is learning Windows as well as the software. Up here at the top, it's telling me where my file will be saved. You can click up here, and this is the computer language. D drive is my flash drive. Midterm grade is my folder name. And I can right-click and copy. Right? That way I won't have to spend as much time navigating. This is just something to know. Click back in the window so that you've deselected. You've clicked off somewhere. I'm going to return to my spreadsheet, File, Save, Browse, and now it's asking me where to save it. Right-click, paste. Isn't that kind of cool? If I hit the Enter key, it'll take me to that folder. Now I need to name my workbook. On your computer, you most likely do not see this .xlsx extension. Just like Microsoft Word automatically adds .docx, Excel automatically adds that XLSX. Since your computer automatically adds it, it is typically not displayed. Remember, I'm a computer geek, okay? So I like to have those things displayed because it's important to things that I do. Please ignore it for the purpose of this exercise. I want you to name this with your last name and first name. So remember, my pretend student here is Anna Apples. So I'm going to type Apples, Anna, hyphen, midterm grade. Please use your last name followed immediately by your first name using proper capitalization, and name your file accordingly. Notice that I'm not typing .xlsx. I don't need to. My file now has the proper name. Let's continue just a little bit more. I'm scanning through my file and I see my cases. Those are important grades. So once again, I'm going to skip a space and I'm now in cell A21. And I'm simply going to type, as you may have guessed, word case 1, word case 2, word case 3, and word case 4. I pressed enter after each one. Now you may be saying, but wait a minute, Dr. McCrory, we have not earned grades for all of our cases yet, because word case 4 was just due last night. That's okay. Go ahead and put the text there, word case 4, and we're going to use that as a placeholder. For now, we're not going to worry about trying to incorporate any grades from the future because we haven't had time to do those yet. Soon you'll have your word grader project. We could put that one in there. Shall we do that? Let's come over here. So the great thing about this is that we can be a little flexible with this because this is our application of skills. And this is how we're supposed to use this in our course. Ours is a case-based course, and your case here is the application of Excel as a tool. And that you need this tool to create your grade, to calculate your grade. So I'm going to call this Word Badge. Make sure you press enter. So we're really just getting all of our Word grades here. And as I scroll down, that takes me to the very, very bottom. Although Did I have some extra credit here for setting up my IT lab username on the first day, which we did? Okay. I see it's not displayed there, but let's go ahead and include that. I'm going to skip a line, A28, and I'm going to say my IT lab user login, because that was a bonus. In fact, maybe, I'm sorry, see, I hit the enter key. I need to modify that. Here's a third technique for modifying a cell. We've talked about just typing with it selected, which will replace the text. We've talked about clicking up here on the formula bar. You can also double click in the cell and see how I now have a flashing line, that insertion point. I can use my arrow keys just like in Word, but I had to double click to make it edit. And I'm going to put in parentheses bonus. Now that I've finished modifying that cell, and that's our third technique, I'm going to press the enter key. Let's go ahead and save. Also, for just a moment, I'm going to make this full screen again. So maximize, please. Scroll back to the top. All of my labels are too big for the cell. And this is just a little problem for me because I'm going to start typing some numbers into the cells over here to the side. And when I type in those cells, like let's say I click cell B5, and I want you to go ahead and do that, B5, and I'm going to type the number 5. Press enter. See how it truncates the text in cell A1? Now you might be afraid right now, what if cell A, that content was deleted? If I click cell A5, I can look up in this truth detector on this formula bar and I see that all my text is still there. I just can't see it. If I was to select cell B5 and press the delete key, it would again allow all that text to display. Well, undo, because I need that number 5 there. Why do I need that number 5? Because in cell B4, I'm going to type points earned. Points earned. Press the enter key. And 5 points is what each person earned in our class for successfully making an effort at the PAWS SLO test. And so I want that 5 points under that column. But it's getting a little confusing because I can't see all my text on the side. I need this column to be wider. One way to do that is when I move my mouse up to column A. Do you see how it changed shapes again? Goodness, this mouse in Excel is always changing shapes. We've learned puffy white plus sign, the 4-sided arrow, the thin black plus sign, and now we have this downward pointing arrow. With my mouse up here all the way on top of the column letter, not down here, I need it to be up with that downward pointing arrow. I'm going to move my mouse until it's kind of in the gutter between column A and column B. And when it's in that gutter, I get a double-sided arrow. With your mouse in this position, press down the key and slide to the right. Press and drag, press and drag. Notice that Excel is keeping a count. It says the width is now 15, 16, 17. When I release my mouse button, the column will be positioned. And now it's a little easier to see all my text as it very neatly displays in the cell, except for these long ones. Cell A28 is very long. Cell A5 is very long. Goodness, how wide should I make this column? Well, if I put my mouse back up on top of column A, and move it so that it's once again in that double-sided arrow between columns A and B. I can double click. That causes the column to snap to the exact size that we need to accommodate all the data in this column. See how that works? That's pretty nice. All right, let's do just a little more formatting with this. In column B, I've titled that, this column, I'm going to put my points earned. But I also need to know in cell C4, select cell C4, how many points were possible. So I typed points possible, and always I have to press the Enter key. Now, my column is once again too small to accommodate this data. Did it cut it? Did it delete something? If I click in cell B4 and look up towards the top, I can see that I did not delete any data. I just can't see it. We're going to use a slightly different technique here. With cell B4 selected, on the Home tab in Excel, in this alignment group, there is a Wrap Text button. Click that. Make sure you had cell B4 selected. Whatever is selected will be affected. Do the same thing to cell C4. Select it, affect it. Wrap text. Wonderful. Save your work. Okay. There's something you should know about how bonus points are added into your overall grade. You earn points, but you're not required to earn those points. So in terms of the points possible, I'm going to click in cell C5 and type 0. We're starting to fill in our grades. Now, notice that when we were entering all these grades, we skipped spaces, lines between categories. I didn't do that when we started with this SLO bonus assignment, and I kind of wish I had. I want to now add a row right above this word quiz 1. This is going to be similar to what you learned about tables in Word, but there is one key thing here. Move your mouse on top of the row number. Notice how my mouse changes shapes again to a right pointing arrow. When you're on a column, you get that arrow. When you're on the row, this affects the entire row. This affects only a cell. Very important. Trust me on this, folks. You need to be on the row. With your mouse on top of the row, right-click. From the menu, choose Insert. There it goes. This should have moved all of your information down. Save your work. We're going to fill in more of the data. I'm going to click in cell B7. I'm also going to minimize my Excel window, not minimize, but restore. And I'm going to move it back over to the side so that I can see. Now that my column A is bigger, I also need to, I'm at like a 270% zoom, so I'm going to bring this down to something a little more reasonable. So I'm about at 112. Maybe I can go, let's see. How about, let me try 130. Yeah, that's a little better. So, because I want you to be able to see both screens. Let's look in pause, and I'm going to scroll up in pause, and I want to start looking at my grades. And we've set our spreadsheet up very similar to what Pause has. In other words, for my word quiz 1, I earned 10 points. That's points earned. So I'm going to click in cell B7 and type 10. Now previously I've had you press the Enter key. This time I'm going to have you press the Tab key. If I press Tab, instead of moving down, it moves across, which allows me to easily enter points possible, which is also 10. Now here's a fancy trick. Press your Enter key. Notice what cell is selected. Instead of it jumping down to C8, it went back to B, but column B, but down one. Excel has figured out your pattern, and Excel loves patterns. It noticed that you're going to type points earned, then points possible, points earned, then points possible, points earned, then points possible. So it's trying to help you with that. So let's let it help us. Now, one small note. If your cell B8 was not selected, it's because you made extra clicks or hit your Enter key, for example, without following this pattern. As a result, Excel has not yet figured out the pattern, but it will. To make sure that you're with me, just simply at this point click in cell B8 to make sure that you're in the right location. Any disruption to that pattern would have interfered with Excel's understanding of what you were doing. Now, I'm just simply looking over here in my grade, and you need to type your grades. Everyone's spreadsheet will be different. For quiz 2, I made an 8 tab out of 10. Enter. See how it's moving the cell that's selected? For quiz 3, I made a 7 tab to go across out of 10. Enter, and Excel recognizes the pattern. And then for quiz 4, I made a 7 tab to move right out of 10. Press Enter. So 10 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 7 out of 10. Wonderful. Save. I need some more grades, but notice that the cell that's selected is B11, and that's not where I want my answers. I'm going to click in cell B12. Scroll down because we've got to find our in-class work. In cell B12, I made a 10 out of 10, so we're going to follow the same pattern. 10 out of 10 for me, 8 out of 10, and then 10 out of 10. Of course, please enter your grades because you need to calculate your grade. In class 1, I made a 10, tab to the right, out of 10, enter, 10, tab to the right, out of 10, enter, 8, tab to the right, out of 10, enter, 10, tab to the right, out of 10, enter. Save your work. I hope you're starting to see the pattern that I'm following here. Now I'm going to enter my simulators. Make sure that you click in cell B17. 10, tab to the right out of 10. Press Enter. 6, tab to the right out of 10. I'm going to finish entering these, but remember, you need to enter your grades. As a word of caution, every time you get to a nice piece that you have finished, save your work. Now I need to enter my case grades. Here's my first one, 15. Make sure you're in the right cell. Are you in cell B22? 15, tab to the right, out of 20, enter. Back over here and pause. I need to scroll down. Then I made a 16. Now, you might at this point have to do a lot of scrolling. And one thing I want you to notice is how awkward it is and how many mistakes you make each time you lift your hands from the keyboard to the mouse. When you do that, you are much more likely to make errors. And that's one reason why keyboard shortcuts are so important, because they allow you, when you can, to keep your hands on the keyboard. My final grade is I don't know yet for word case 4. Now, what should I do in that case? I mean, I could put a 0 in. I have 0 out of 20. But for this particular item, I am going to guess at what my grade is. And I am hoping that I made a 20 out of 20. Oh, that would be so great. So I'm going to replace that and put that there. But I want to kind of mark this cell because I want to remember that that's not my actual grade. That was my guess at what I would make. So select cell B25. And up here along the top, do you see the paint bucket and it has a yellow bar under it? That means if I just click the bucket, it'll fill it in yellow. You can fill the cell with whatever color you would like. It's just our way of mentally noting that that's not a real grade. Now, for my word badge, I also do not yet have a grade. So for that cell, B27, I'm also going to color it yellow. And I'm going to guess at my grade. Now, if you don't remember, as I scroll down here, that is also a 20-point assignment. So maybe for my word badge, that's either pass or fail. So I know if I get my 70% or above, that's going to be a 20 out of 20. And I just feel that in my bones that I'm going to get that right. We have one more. Assignment, and that is the MyIT user login. You all successfully created your MyIT user login. So I need to look at the syllabus. I believe that was bonus points, or was that required points? We might need to go back to the syllabus. Let's see, in my handy dandy, I've got this. Oh, I've got pause open right here. Let's just check real quick. We'll go to content. We'll look at this category that says syllabus, and then there's our syllabus. And it's under methods of evaluation is what it should be. Let's kind of just scroll down quickly. I know this video is long, but I hope it is helpful. Here we go. Bonus points, it is bonus points. And if I recall, it is 5. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's 5 bonus points. It's 5 bonus points. For some reason, that's not displaying out there to the side for either of those. So, okay. So how do we do bonus points? Remember up above, those are points that we earned, but there was no requirement for the points. So we're going to follow suit. Cell B29, 5 points earned, tab. Did you see what Excel just did? It just colored my cell yellow. It observed the pattern. I did not want that, Excel. Well, let me address that in just a moment. In cell C29, go ahead and put in 0 and then enter. Okay, so to remove that coloring in cell B29, whatever is selected will be affected. So I have to select the cell, go back to my paint bucket, but this time instead of clicking the yellow, bar there, next to it there is a small triangle. Click that and select no fill. Excel was sneaky that time. Make sure you save. All right, we've done a lot of work. Now it's going to all pay off in Excel, because the first thing we did was we had to get it set up. We transcribed our grades. All right, let's do a little bit more work. I want to create a category over here to the side. Well, I'll just do it in column D, called Subtotal. So I'm going to type Subtotal. And I hit enter. I want to make sure that these are easily recognized as column names, so I think I'll bold them. Do you remember how to select more than one cell? There's two ways. You can click to select and then press and drag. Only 3 cells are shaded, but the green border goes around all 4 cells. Another way, click off someplace, put your mouse at the first position where you want to select, press and drag. The result is the same. 3 cells are shaded, but the border goes around all 4 cells. And bold. That's a familiar skill from Word, isn't it? Save. In my subtotal area, I want to add up really all of my bonus points. But that's kind of seems ridiculous because I only have the one bonus item there. And awkwardly, my other bonus item is way down here. And I don't like this layout. That's confusing to have to look for one bonus item up top and one bonus item at the bottom. So we're going to make some changes, okay? The first thing we want to do is I want to add 2 rows right here. Do you remember how to insert a row? I hope you're not right-clicking with a puffy white plus sign. You need to move your mouse all the way over the number 6. Right-click, insert. Since we want another row, I'm going to do that again. Right-click, insert. The difference when you put your mouse all the way over the row is, do you see how it has selected the entire row? That goes out as far as the eye can see. You would be amazed, and you'll study that in Chapter 1 of Excel. Now, let's scroll down, and I'm going to select these 3 cells. Now, did you see how I did it all in one go? If I click off, I put my mouse over the first cell I wanted, press and drag, release. With my mouse over my selection, right-click, cut. Do you see these little dots? These are called marching ants, and they just tell us that Word is aware that that has been cut. Scroll up. Click in cell A6. With your mouse on top of A6, right-click, paste. Our content has been pasted into that position. And as we scroll back down, it's been removed because we cut it from there. Okay. Now, I'm going to click in cell D7. And I want to start understanding my grade percentage, okay? So I'm going to get maybe a little tricky here because this is also going to be, in cell A7, a subtotal. So in A7 I clicked and I typed subtotal. In cell B7, and I tabbed across, I am going to sum these numbers. And you may already, oftentimes students are familiar with the fact that Excel does that very quickly. With cell B7 selected, why is cell B7 selected? Because that's where I want my answer. I'm going to be on my Home tab, and I'm going to create my first formula. I'm going to go over to where it says Auto Sum. This is so great. And I'm going to click that button. Observe the marching ants. They are surrounding the 2 cells that I want added. And that's important because it guessed correctly, but it doesn't always guess correctly. You know what you should do if it doesn't guess correctly? You can, remember how you learned how to resize an object in Word and you put your mouse over those little corner pieces and you could pull that? So you might have to do that sometimes. Here it should guess correctly. Now, we're going to get into formulas in a little bit, But for now, it should say equals sum, parenthesis, B5, and that colon, the two dots, is pronounced through, B5 through B6, and then a closing parenthesis. Since that's exactly what we want, press the Enter key on your keyboard. Why didn't we just type 10? Wouldn't that have been easier? No, not in the long run, and that's our focus. Because in the long run, this might change. What if you got 6 bonus points for that pretest? If I change this, remember I just select the cell and type over the top of it, and I hit my Enter key, notice that the sum formula updated automatically because we never typed the number 10 in the cell. The cell displays the answer. The formula bar tells us what's really in that cell. But we only earned 5 bonus points, so undo. That's just a little sneak peek into some more things that you're going to be learning. We're going to do the same thing under points possible. Click in cell C7, auto sum. Isn't this cool? Verify that your marching ants are correct. Press the Enter key on your keyboard. All right, I want us to stop and look at this for just a minute. These numbers look like they are of equal value, but the truth is this is a sum. So I want it to look like it is more important. So we're going to format this just a little bit. Select cells A7 through C7. Bold. Now it looks better, but I want to be really clear that this is a subtotal. So we're going to get a little more fancy. I'm going to go to my paint bucket and I am going to use this little drop down arrow and pick a black background. Oh no, you say, I can't see my data. Not to worry, we're going to change the font color. Isn't this familiar from Word? And I'm going to change that to a white font color. Pretty cool. It really stands out now. I have one more thing that I want to do. I want to understand how my grade, what percentage of my grade is, how will this work as a percentage, I guess. We'll do that in the next step because I think it will make more sense as we continue on. Okay. Here are my word quiz scores. I need some extra space just like I did before, so I need to insert 2 rows. Can you follow along with me? Now I want to create a subtotal. Tab. I need to sum my points possible. I need to sum, my points earned. I need to now sum my points possible. I need to format these so that they look more significant. See how Excel makes it easy by remembering our settings? The bucket no longer has a yellow line underneath it. It remembers the last color we chose, so we simply click the bucket to reapply it. The same is true with the text lettering. It remembers the last color we chose for our convenience. I'm going to repeat these steps for each category. Feel free to pause the video and to replay to confirm that you're doing each step correctly. I'll give you one more tip. Remember that when we hit enter, Excel tries to follow the pattern, but when we click the check mark, it stays in the same location. you may find that more familiar. Now, I'm going to pause here because didn't we learn something pretty special in Word about this format painter? If you would like to be a little fancy, remember that you begin with the format painter by clicking or selecting what has the format. So in other words, this is what I'm going to dip my paintbrush into. I'm going to dip it into a cell that already has the black background, that already has the white fonts, that already is bolded. Dip. The marching ants say that my paintbrush is loaded now. Press and drag. Pretty cool. Let's keep moving forward. I could copy if you're thinking that might be faster, and paste. I'm using different techniques, but you do what you are most comfortable with. I'm not even worried about that yellow coloring because I know that I'm going to dip my paintbrush in that formatting and apply it. Now I'll tell you a little tips and tricks. See how I have this yellow formatting here and I want that to be clear? Well, I could certainly just change my paint bucket to remove the fill, but this cell doesn't have any formatting. So if I dip my paintbrush in it and apply it to a cell that has the formatting that I don't want, it makes it just like the cell it came from with no formatting. Perfect. Now, I know I have more assignments here, but I'm going to go ahead and get this set up so that it's ready for later. I'm going to see another little trick and see if this works. What if when I copy these three cells and right-click, copy, and paste, when I did that, now that's weird, 86 and 100, where did that come from? When I look up here at the top, it seems to be adding up a whole bunch of cells. In fact, cells B34 through, remember that's how we read that, through B37. Well, that's not what I want. We're going to learn how to modify those later. For now, just click in cell B38 and press the auto sum button. Notice that it's updating that. And I'm going to do the same thing for cell C38 because I know this is not 100. It's adding C34 through C37. Again, this is a teaching module, so I'm showing you many different approaches. You will continue to learn and practice these. This is your introduction into Excel. Very powerful tool, and you see how many techniques we're learning, and you are learning them. You're not supposed to already know them. That's why I'm showing you, right? Make sure you save. Okay, we have a pretty nice looking spreadsheet here, but we do have a little more work to do. In cell D13, I am going to find out how my grade looks just from the quiz perspective. And when we calculate our grade, we simply take the points earned and divide by points possible. Well, Excel is just a big old calculator, and it can do that for us. And it's important that you let Excel do this for you. If you type the number, it will be marked wrong. That's true for all of these where we've used the AutoSum feature. So click in cell D13, and we're going to use Excel like a calculator. Now, when I click in cell D13, notice my toolbar, I have everything available. I can do all kinds of things. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type an equal sign. As soon as you type that equal sign, Excel shuts down all these formatting tools because you just went into adding machine mode. You just went into calculator mode. And what you want your calculator to do is divide whatever value happens to be in cell B13. Well, you know the easiest way is click on that. And the symbol for divide is if you find the question mark, it's kind of next to your shift key. Make sure that you're using the slash that falls forward. Its head fell forward. Don't use the one where the head is falling backwards. The head has to fall forwards. So B13 divided by C13. You just created your first formula. Press the Enter key to complete it. 32 divided by 40 is 0.8. If we format that as a percentage, what would that be? What percentage would that be? Isn't 0.8 80%? We move the decimal over 2. Excel can do that for us. Make sure cell D13 is selected, and on the Home tab, do you see this percentage? Click that. Voila! Voila! So cool! What's the value in there? B13 divided by C13. See it up here on the truth bar, the formula bar? Now you might say, why isn't it multiplied by 100? Because we're seeing a percentage. And this is something else that I'm going to introduce to you in Excel, which is that formatting something as a percentage also has the effect of multiplying it by 100. Pretty cool. I want this to stick out, so I'm going to format it the same. I want it to be bold. I want it to have a black background, and I want the letters to be white. See how Excel is making things easy? So my quiz grades are about at 80%. That's good to know. I'm going to click here in cell D20, and let's do the same thing. How did I do that calculator again? I started by typing an equal sign. That turns on the calculator in Excel. I clicked on the first value that I needed, B20. I found that / the division symbol. The head falls forward, and then I clicked the number to divide by, points possible. And then either press Enter and then select the cell again, or else hit that check mark. 0.95. Let's format that as a percentage. Bold, black background, white letters. Hey, are you getting the hang of it? Let's do it again. All formulas start with an equal sign. That's calculator mode. The cell that I need, divide, points possible. Press Enter and select the cell, or else click Enter. Format as a percent, bold, black background, white lettering. Hey, pretty cool. One more time. All formulas start with equal. Don't forget that equal sign. Very, very, very important. Select the first cell that I need. Divide. Percentage. Bold. Now, what is this showing? It's simply showing your performance in each category. If you had an F in your cases, or if you had an F in your simulators, then you know this is an area where you're weak. That's what it's showing. It's not your grade in the course, not yet. Give me a moment. Now, I'm not going to worry about quite yet. Well, I guess I could. Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Okay, I'm going to click in cell D38. All formulas start with an equal sign. Right now, we don't have too much to work with here, but that's okay. Oops, I forgot to bold. This is pretty cool. Now, here's where Excel gets really cool. Do you remember that in cell B34, you did not type the value, but Excel added it using that sum formula, which we're going to learn more later. Same is true for, cell C34, but really the same is true for cell D34. Now think about this. Cell D34 is using a number that was calculated by Excel. That 66 in my case was calculated by Excel. What if something changes? I don't know if I'm going to make a 20 out of 20 on word case 4. Maybe I only make an 18 out of 20. Well, if I select cell B33 and I type right over the top of it, I'm sorry, let me move that, right over the top of it, I'm going to type 18 and I'm going to press my enter key. Look at all the updates that just happened. Cell B34 was updated. Instead of 66, it's now 64. And that changed my percentage a little bit. I can do that again. What if instead, oh my goodness, what if I made my other grades suggest that I might make a 15? Well, do you see how you can use this to what if your grade on your cases? What if I made a 10? What impact would that have on these particular grades? I don't have to calculate each piece of the puzzle. I don't have to stop and calculate the subtotal of these points and then recalculate this percentage. Excel is going to do that for me because we didn't type 56 into this cell. Excel calculated it because we have the formula in the cell. Isn't this cool? This is part of the power of Excel. We're going to go a little further because these were all subtotals. And what we need is a grand total. A grand total, my goodness. I'm going to click in cell A40 and I'm going to type the word grand total. And I'm going to tab across. Now, we're going to put all your skills to use here, folks. You're going to use them all. I need to add up some cells. I need to add up cell B7, cell B13, that's another one of my subtotals, cell B20, B27, B34, sounds like I'm playing bingo, cell B38. Are you going to remember all that? I'll never remember all that. I don't have to because Excel is going to let me click these to add them up. Okay, here's what I mean. Click in cell B40. And I told you that Excel is just a giant adding machine. That's all it is. So let's use it that way. If we want to turn on that adding machine, all formulas start with an equal sign. Now we're in calculator mode. Now, I am not clicking. I am scrolling. I'm not clicking anything because if I click, I have to start over. I don't want anything selected. Up in your formula bar, the only thing you should see is this equal sign. Click on cell B7. Notice that it was added to your formula. You're going to now type the plus sign, and notice that this is no longer marching ants, but it locked it in. That means I can click my next cell, B13. Now it has the marching ants. I'm going to lock that in. I'm going to type a plus sign. Now I'm going to select my next cell, B20, plus, scroll down, B27, plus, and let's see, plus, I'm sorry, B34, plus, B38. Now, that's the last cell that I need to add. I've added all those points together. I do not need to click the grand total cell again. If I do, I will get an error message. If you made any mistakes along the way, you're going to have to come back and edit the cell. I'm going to hit the Enter key. My result is 188 points overall. Now, if you have an error message here or anything other than a number, then click the cell again, cell B40, and compare your formula to mine. Anytime you have something that's different than what I have, see how you can click inside to change it? It should start with an equal. It should say B7. There are no spaces, no spaces. Equal B7 plus B13 plus B20 plus B27 plus B34 plus B38. If you have anything else in there, you need to delete it or change it to match that. Now, see how when I'm clicking, it thinks I'm editing this? I need to get out. Make sure you enter, or escape is also the escape key on your keyboard to get out of that formula. Now, I need to do that one more time, and we kind of need the practice, so let's try it again. Click on cell C40. In order to use the adding machine, I have to start with an equal sign. Don't click on anything, scroll all the way up to the top. Cell C7 is my first value, plus cell C13, plus cell C20, plus cell C27, plus cell C34, plus cell C38. That's the last cell. Whenever I have the last cell, I hit Enter. One last step. We can determine our overall grade by clicking in cell D40 and dividing 188 by 220. But we would never type that. We would always use the cell names because some of these numbers are going to change. We just guessed at them. In cell D40, equal cell B40, divide, the head falls forward, by C40, Enter. Select Format as a percent. My grade right now in the class, my overall grade, is an 85%. So let's do this. Since this is our grand total, I'm going to select it. Did you see what I did? Press and drag. Press and drag. With it selected, this time I'm going to make the color, how about a nice Halloween orange? And I am going to bold it. That just lets me see it very quickly. Now, look at the power of Excel. Because we never typed these numbers in directly, we didn't type 70%, we let Excel calculate it. We didn't type 56, we let Excel do the math, right? So what if for my word case 4, what if I actually do get that great 20 out of 20? My 56 jumps up to 66. The percentage of my word cases goes all the way up to 83. Down here in my grand total, I now have 198 points that I earned out of 220, and that's just enough to get me a 90% at this kind of midterm-esque, this progress. It's not really a midterm because we're not at the midterm yet, but it's a progress grade. Isn't this cool? As we continue later on in the semester, we will insert some rows. We will add your Excel grades in here so you can keep your grade right in front of you. Save your work. Close the file. Back in pause. Oh, okay, my syllabus opened in a new window. I'm going to close the syllabus. Let's go back. We're in pause. Go to Assessment, Assignments. I'm going to scroll all the way down because I remember it was at the bottom. Don't forget you are on page 2. So if you have difficulty finding other assignment drop boxes, you might have to change back to page 1. But I'm going to come to my Calculate Your Midterm Grade with Excel. I'm going to add a file from my computer. I'm going to upload from my flash drive, and we called that midterm grade, my Anna Apples midterm, add, and submit. And then I'm done. I hope that this video is helpful in leading you all the way through the process of calculating your grade as of this point in the semester. Again, if you don't get to the end of this in class, then the rest of it will be homework, but it's a great guide for you as you begin Excel. Thank you.